Hi guys, welcome to the Improvement Season podcast. It is me, Steve Hall, and over there is Pascal Floor. This week, or last week rather, we didn't have the Improvement Season, but I think people have been enjoying listening to people other than us, which is nice to know.
Yeah, I was supposed to actually host that roundtable discussion, if you want to call it that, about my internet connection. The provider, I'm still having issues. I'm still right now not in my own internet, but the internet from my neighbors, and even the internet that so I have a plan right now. I don't know if it's working out that way. I'm waiting for another internet provider. So I right now have ordered 2 internet connections from 2 different providers. And once there is the internet from one of the 2 that is the fastest, I will then just cancel the other one. I don't know how it works out, so I have to wait and see. And if it all goes to shit, I will probably make a suggestion to my neighbors in purchasing their internet for a monthly fee. Maybe I make the suggestion of like, okay, can I take over your contract? I will pay all of the money. You can get free access to the internet, but then I have control over the entire thing. Yeah, don't know. I know. That is the situation right now. Internet problems.
That is like the epitome of first world problems.
I mean, nowadays, internet is such an important aspect of our day-to-day living, at least in the Western world, and especially for us. Like, this is our occupation. If I don't have internet, I can't work. It's crazy to think, right? But times have changed so significantly over the past decades. And thus, we are in a day and age where internet is just an absolute important thing. And we can even take it from a political perspective. Internet allows people free speech. And actually, especially, we're not talking about something like in our realms, but more so in different countries with dictatorships and so. We've seen kind of revolutions that started due to the internet and the ability for free speech on the internet. Anyway, we are getting political once again. I know that people
you always
like,
do this, Pascal.
Yeah,
I'm
sorry.
Did you watch the Netflix documentary about Trump and how he manipulated things to he basically manipulated lots of social media streams to help with his kind of becoming the president, essentially. So it's scary. It's scary. Like
I'm happy that I'm not answering the YouTube comments anymore, but it's just now, because whenever you put Trump in your mouth, I have the feeling that someone is immediately like, I don't know, rage mode is turned on and then jumping on the comment section. No matter whether you're saying something nice, he only listens or hears like, Trump, oh, a leftist must be speaking now. And yeah, don't know.
So I was going to actually bring up, do you remember the days of dial-up connection?
Oh, yeah. Man, that just proves how old you are. Man, I do remember the time when a friend of mine actually got internet, and it was something very special because we didn't have internet at home. So I always got to him, and it was kind of a special deal because he wasn't allowed by his parents to constantly be in the internet because you still were paying for like a minute, right? So it was kind of a special deal. And then there was a time where the only usage for me the internet had was being in chat rooms. That was
like MSN.
No, it's something else, like a chat where it was like a city, and then you could go into the blue house, and then you could chat there, and then the red house, and every house had a different topic. I can't recall how old I was. Must have been when I was 10, 11, something like that or so. That was the only usage I had for the internet back in the days, chat rooms.
You couldn't use people because we didn't have, like, mobile phones didn't exist, I don't think, at that time. So then if you were on the internet, you couldn't use your house phone. So I remember that as well. Imagine that. You can't record a podcast because Charlotte's on the phone. This would be so weird.
Man, I do remember our first computer. It was huge and had only like 166 megahertz, which is, you couldn't do anything at all. And I was playing trying to play Roller Coaster Tycoon on it, but the computer wasn't good enough for that one. So when you could start the theme park, but the deeper you got into building the theme park, the more the computer was on the demand, and at some point it just crashed completely.
Man, it's crazy how
set
fast.
Times.
Yeah. Jeez, you can tell we're in our 30s.
Yeah, and now we have Unreal Engine coming out, which is just incredible. Have you seen that? Where they promoted Unreal Engine. I think Unreal Engine 4 or 5. Incredible. The gameplay, it looks so insanely real. If you see that, if you haven't seen that, I would very much recommend you check that out, because this is mind-blowing. This is the next step, and at some point, probably when we are doing some kind of video games, we would then just like step into virtual reality, and it will feel like reality. And when you see that engine, it's wow. I get goosebumps, which just shows how much of a nerd I am when it comes to that. But it's just incredible. You've
sold it to me. I want to try it now. I know we're both as bad as each other, but I could imagine, at least if I had a friend that had it, I'd like on my like day off, just go around there and play it. Like I'd want to do that, but I couldn't have something like that at home because it would be a waste.
Yeah, but right now I think that it's still in production, in the process of being produced or like created for video games. They just presented it like 2 months ago or so, with then like a teaser, like a gameplay teaser, where they just walk through kind of different scenarios, and it just looked absolutely stunning. It was kind of really reality. It was crazy, amazing.
I'll have to check it out. I have no idea. I'm very ignorant to gaming. My like experience was like I think I had a PS1 maybe, then PS2, PS3, and then I know nothing past that.
So I was very much into gaming, and now, funny enough, I have so many other things that I'm more interested in, and that's why I don't want to spend any kind of time anymore for video games. Even though that I know now video games must be so much cooler because of the reality aspect of it, right? And everything has just improved around it. But I haven't played any kind of video games in a very long time, which is good because I rather spend time with the family, and maybe the time comes once again when I'm sitting down with my kids than to play video games. But what I wanted to say is totally lost the train of thought here.
So how was your week, Pascal? You're wrecked today, actually.
Yeah.
Good leg session.
Yeah. I haven't felt like this in a very long time. So I got up in the morning here, and I really felt like as if a train has hit me. And this is something that I haven't experienced in a very long time. Like, not because you slept badly or anything like that, but just like you could tell it was coming from training. Because yesterday's leg session, it was crazy good, crazy productive. Even though that I'm feeling a little bit under the weather right now. Funny enough, so Hugo got back into the kindergarten. Probably some parents can relate to that. COVID situation, kindergartens are now opening up again. So Hugo got back into the kindergarten like 2 weeks ago. And then in the first week, he caught a cold. Brought it back home. Tony got sick. I got sick as well. And I was just like, oh, please, don't let me get the symptoms of like COVID. So coughing and stuff like that, because then I'm not allowed to go back into the gym anymore. So I was begging, like, please don't give me those symptoms. I have like a stuffy nose. I felt a little bit lethargic the first days, and then all of a sudden it got better and better very quickly. So I really do think it was just like a mild cold, and I'm already on my way to get better. But because of that, I thought that the next session will be like totally exhausting, and that this will be my last week in this mesocycle, which would be unfortunate because I needed to cut the last mesocycle short as well. But yeah, here we are. I finished week number 3, and I'm definitely going for week number 4. And the last training session was fucking insane. And buddy, I told you already via voice messages, twice daily training is simply absolutely my thing. And I've experienced that back in 2017 already, and now I'm back again on the 2 a day training train, and it's amazing. I love it because what I was doing yesterday on my leg day, I couldn't have it accomplished in just one single session. No freaking way. Absolutely not. That doesn't mean that I'm doing tremendous amounts of volume, but per session, I wasn't able to recover like on a set per set basis enough to give it my all. That's why this is where frequency comes into play, right? Also, when you're going just like spreading it out into different days. This is the same here. I couldn't do the amount of work that I need to do in order to have a productive training session. Systemically, I could recover from that, but per session, I couldn't recover from the leg day training. So doing something for the quads and then moving over to the hamstrings, right, was never in the cards. And now I'm finally able to do that one more time, where I'm going in there, I'm hitting the hamstrings hard in the morning, like yesterday, the second lower body session, and then in the PM, in quotation marks, I'm going in there and doing the quads, and I still can do a lot of sets, lots of volume, which I can recover from, once again, systemically, but now also on a per session basis. And for me, it makes a night and day difference of being able to go training twice daily, like honestly.
Yeah, it's funny. I know you said, I think you left me a voice message saying you're going to your second session, and I was thinking, I haven't even done my first session yet. What's your interval between the two sessions? Is it like basically one meal?
Yeah, it's one meal around 4 to 5 hours, something like that. So I'm going to the gym at around 6 at the moment because the gyms are opening at 6. Or my gym, that new gym, is opening at 6, at least throughout the weekdays. So 6 to around 7. Around 7, I'm back home again already. So 0.6, I'm already starting my first set. So I'm there. Once the doors open, they most of the time open at around 5:50. And then I'm already there inside, warming up and then giving him all. And yeah, going home, eating something, doing client check-ins, doing a little bit of work. And then around 10, 11-ish, I'm having another coffee, having another whey shake and going for the next round.
So your first session's when my second session's when my first session basically kicks in.
Yeah,
because that makes sense because you get up like 4 hours before me.
Yeah, I just need a little bit of a break in between, right? A mental break, but also just to calm down, re-energize myself, fuel up so that I'm ready to go for the next session. I am simply not that type of guy who likes to be in the gym for around 2 hours. That's simply not me. I could easily go 3 times per day, in the sense of like from a mental capacity. I have an easy time just thinking about going 3 times instead of having one long ass session of being there for 2.5 or 3 hours. That's simply not me, and this is why I rather split it up, have a little bit of a break in between, fuel up, and then go for another bout. And that just works wonders for me. That doesn't mean that I'm now doing significantly more volume in it for itself, right? Because I think it's very important to go back to the podcast that we've recorded with three guys, Mike, Jared, and Charlie, that I'm not just like ramping up my volume now because now I treat every single session like a single session. No, that's not what I'm doing, but I just increase my window of opportunity because before that, my window had a certain threshold because I wasn't, once again, not able to recover per session from the amount that I needed to do. And this is where the other frequency comes in. So if you're then, of course, increasing the volume, then it's an adequate and appropriate increase of volume. It's not that you were growing sufficiently from what you've been doing before, and there was no need in increasing the volume, and now you're switching over to twice daily training, and you're just like doubling the amount of volume. That's not what I'm doing. I'm still working in the spectrum of what I'm capable of recovering from, but I had to split it up in order to do more volume, if that makes sense.
Yeah, the way I picture twice daily training is just another level to frequency, right? So you move from, you can get everything done in 3 days, then you need to spread it into 4, then you need to spread it to 5, then 6. And then that's where, once you're at 6 days, that's where probably the twice daily comes in. Now, some people, like different circumstances, maybe some people can't get in 6 days, so they might already think about twice daily if that suits their lifestyle. But it's really interesting on legs because I was very much the same. I remember, I think it was 2018 when Mike and Jared came over, and I was talking to Mike about it because I hadn't really split my leg training into like AM and PM, hamstrings, then quads or whatever it might be, vice versa. I'd done like hamstrings and quads and then calves and maybe some delts and arms or something. And I was like, Mike, I can recover between sessions and I could do more volume, like if the muscles recovered, but systemically in a session, I can't hit my hamstrings and quads with the amount that they could definitely do. And he was just like, so you can split that into AM and PM. And like, when he told me, I was just like, oh my God, I have to do two hard sessions for like legs. But since doing that, it definitely made a big difference. Like I can't, like you said, today I had straight leg deadlifts this morning and then leg curls. If I had to do any quad work in that session, it would only be something like leg extensions or maybe a few sets of like belt squats I could get in. But now I can recover, rest, have a meal, and then I can go in and do like some like belt squats, several sets, and some like lunges, which I'm going to do. And I can actually give them due diligence. And it's not because the only difference is systemically I'm ready to go and I've kind of refueled, and it's that mental kind of fatigue. It's just like if you're hitting your lagging muscle groups at the end of the session when you have no energy for them, there's no wonder they're not growing. So then if you start adding in like an arm day, or you prioritize them at the start of the session, or you spread your frequency out more, they start growing again. It's because you're just so fatigued at the end session. They kind of become junky in that sense. And that's, that was a big difference for me too.
Yeah. And just to bring it out there as well, because I think many people are then always like, okay, twice daily training. Is there really a need for someone like you to train that way? And unfortunately, I think there is, because I would love to be that guy like Z, who only needs like 2 sets on a hamstring, and then I'm just like absolutely fucked for the rest of the week. I would love to be the guy who grows of very minimum volume. Would love that, because that would mean that I could save a lot of time spending in the gym. Because yes, while I do love in the gym, if I had the option of like going to the gym like 4 times per week and grow as much as I do right now, of course I would then pick the first one, right? And right now, I'm also the most demand that is there is for the lower body, where I need the most amount of attention and focus as well for each and every single set. And that also takes the most amount of my energy resources. This is the reason why I'm only going twice daily 4 times out of the week, and 2 times out of the week I'm still going only in the AM, which is then the second, or which is an upper and a So it's a pull and a push session. Sorry for that. And that is like in the midst of the macro cycle. So upper day is the first day, AM and PM, lower body day, AM and PM. Then third day is a pull session, going in there only AM. Then the push day, only AM as well the next day. Then going back to the lower body day, AM, PM. And the last day is upper body, AM and PM as well. And that just suits me quite nicely. It allows me for still not going to the gym like 6 days out of the week, if that's so 6 days AM and PM, if that's not very much necessary. Because once again, it is not a thing about like I want to go like 6 days twice daily. It's more like a needs analysis kind of thing, right? With this setup, it's absolutely fine. Perhaps there comes the time where I also need then to split it up with the pull and the push session once again to get in the amount of volume or intensity that I need. But right now, I can probably keep going with that one for a longer period of time before the need of making any kind of adjustments. Yeah. And what it also allows me is just really give it my all when it comes to, first and foremost, not doing any kind of junk volume. Because if I were to do like 2 quad exercises, then do another hip hinge movement or so, the leg curls, they will just feel absolutely shitty, right? So why not take a short break and then go back and give it like what you actually can give it to, and you still are able to recover from it systemically.
Have you at the moment got 2 hip hinge variants on both hamstring days?
Yeah, it's crazy because Brian Borstein, he actually reached out to me saying like, okay, you have SLDLs and RDLs in the program? Yeah. So on my second lower body day, I start the day with SLDLs. And then on the first lower body day, yeah, for the PM session, I'm actually doing RDLs. and I'm still recovering, unfortunately, nicely from that.
I did do that at one point. I was deadlifting twice a week. I could do it, but after a while, it kind of got away from me. But I was going to mention, because I don't know if I talked about it on the podcast before, but I rechecked my straight leg deadlift form. And this mesocycle, I've been able to get my straight leg deadlifts up to, I did 5 sets today, which is, I can do more than 5 sets, but they're less systemically fatiguing because I've changed my form on them and I'm using less load. 3 sets would wreck me in the past. It's just because I was using way more lower back, way more load totally, and not hitting the hamstrings as effectively. So I think when you can, like, you dial in that like stimulus to fatigue ratio, you can get more productive volume done, and that might allow you to not be so wrecked. So you can actually deadlift twice a week potentially.
Yeah, and you've seen my SLDLs and RDLs, right?
Shit.
I mean, yeah, absolute garbage. So, but my back can actually take all of the load without me, or I'm being wrecked. No, but in all honesty, I mean, this is one of the reasons why probably I can get away with that right now, because I'm very much trying to keep perfect technique on these kind of things. And right now, because I'm actively trying to work on that one, man, possibly there's always something to improve, right? But at some point it becomes splitting hairs, where it's like, yeah, there's 1 millimeter of like a lower back flexion, or fuck that, right? I mean, come on. As long as I start the day and I know I can say like, okay, I'm very satisfied with the form and technique. And also when I'm doing something like a hip hinge movement such as SLDLs and RDLs, that the limiting factor after a couple of sets becomes the hamstrings and the glutes, then I'm all good, right? As long as it's not the lower back or just my systemic fatigue just piling up, I'm just like busted and I can't do anything more because of that, then something needs to be taken into reconsideration, because then you always have to ask yourself, right? Leave the ego at the door and ask yourself this, okay, is there a better way to get a stimulus in where the muscle group is actually the limiting factor and not my willpower, not my lower back, not any other kind of muscle group or part of your body, but actually the intended part that you wanted to hit with that exercise. And as long as you can say, yes, I hit that, and that was the limiting factor, I think that you should be good, of course. And good form, good technique should always be the prerequisite. I had a discussion about when I posted my back video, my back form checkup over on Instagram. Someone like said, yeah, but with deadlifting, it comes under the prerequisite of good form and technique. And I said, like, this should always be the prerequisite. Before that, we don't even need to have a discussion, right? Because this should always be the standard to build a discussion from. If that's not in check, then of course, we don't need to have a discussion about like hitting a muscle group a specific way or so, because proper technique should always be there first. Always.
Fast, efficient fat loss. Does that sound like music to your ears? The mini cut movement might just be for you. Mini cuts are like robbing the fat bank. You want to get in and out with as much fat as possible. In a short period of time, you could easily look to lose 6 to 12 pounds of fat. The mini cut movement is excellent. There's group support for extra accountability and also expert help within the group. We have educational videos to keep you on track along the way, and you get all your nutrition and training customized and individualized for you. So if that sounds of interest, get involved with the mini cut movement. I think it's, I was going to bring up the deadlift actually, because what I found with my straight leg deadlift is I was getting the same sensation of systemic fatigue as a standard deadlift. Like I was essentially, I think a lot of people end up turning their kind of like a straight leg deadlift that they're meant to be trying to target the hamstrings almost into a conventional deadlift. They have maybe slightly too much knee flexion. They maybe look round their lower back a little bit. And it's like, well, now you're just doing what is a good conventional deadlift for hypertrophy, but maybe that's not the best choice still, because like you said, and like I've just described, the systemic fatigue. And I think I kind of backed you up on it being like, I mean, back development, deadlift. Yes, like a lot of people are like, yeah, deadlifting, posterior chain, but at the end of the day, how much of the back is actually getting kind of limited by the deadlift? And it's like, well, some erectors, some traps, but I mean, it's a lot of glute and hamstring going on there, maybe a little bit of quad. And it's just such a overwhelmingly very, very stimulating movement, but the cost of fatigue. I did put it in a few times in my off season since 2017. And every time I put it in, I was just like, man, this just takes so much away from so much else. I can do like 1 or 2 sets. And if I try and do any more, I can't complete a session. And that's what was starting to leak into my straight leg deadlift. So yeah, technique, like that was the main thing from your post, was like,
yeah. And the thing is, when I bring up these kind of things, right, I wish that someone would sit down, instead of taking it as an offense against maybe that their bias, their preference or so, because they think that a deadlift is a good back developer or so, right? Instead of seeing as me being just like, I don't know, targeting you and you are just a shitty person because you're now thinking that deadlifts are good for back hypertrophy. That's not what I'm saying. This is never the intention. Once again, just as a reminder, what I said in the past, you can train however you want, right? Whether you take some recommendations or suggestions or studies or whatever it is into consideration, I really don't care, right? In the end, I really don't care. And all I want is, though, that we are getting to a point where we are optimizing our training, right? And that, of course, implies that I have different opinions and different experiences with certain things, and I could be completely wrong. But disregarding what someone has to say just because you have a personal bias, this is what dogmaticism is all about. When you are not open-minded of listening to what other people have to say, then you have a pre-notion already. You have a set belief. And beliefs are never a good thing when it comes to just like evidence-based. Right? And when it comes to that, you have made up your mind already. Right? So what I would like in that scenario, when I'm saying something like that, instead of being like, yeah, but I have stepped on stage like 20 times already, and we will see when you're getting lean. It just pays off, right? And then you just have to ask like, okay, does it really? So if I show you like 100 back picks, like shredded back picks, are you able to tell the difference? Like, okay, this guy deadlifted and he didn't?
I really feel like some people think they could.
So, like, very much from so all I'm saying here is very much from a pragmatic and trying to be as logical as possible about it, right? So, like, this has to be asked then, because what you're saying is then kind of implied in that you're able to tell the difference from someone who deadlifted and someone who didn't, right? And then we are coming to the next point in the discussion, right? So, if you think that deadlifts are a great back builder, are you doing it on back days or are you doing it on leg days? Oh, no. I'm doing it on leg days because it has a carryover on back. So you are on the days where you're resting the back, you're still training the back anyway. Okay, so you're doing the deadlift for the purpose of building your legs. But you say that it's a great back builder. So why aren't you doing more deadlifts then? Because it's systemically fatiguing. All right. So when it's systemically fatiguing, why shouldn't we then reduce the deadlifts and just replace it with something like rows, for example? So would you say that 3 sets of deadlifts are equal to 3 sets of rows? No. But it's in conjunction with back work. Okay, so it's not really that good of a back builder because you always have the alternative of something like rows that are one-to-one, always better, systemically and also from a stimulus perspective. So it's on paper, logically speaking and rationally speaking, right? It's not a good back builder because you have to then compare it to all of the back builders. If you really set it straight and set it equal to the same level as back development movements, then you have to compare it with that. And then you have to say like, okay, if I have a complete program and want to build my back, and have the choice between picking rows or picking deadlifts, would I pick the deadlift to actually further build my back and put some emphasis on the back? Probably not, right? So it just is a completely, from a logical perspective, I'm not saying that deadlifts are a shitty exercise, but from the stimulus fatigue ratio and from the amount of stimulus that you're just generating from it and the reward that you're getting, 1-to-1 repetition on a repetition and set per set basis, the deadlift isn't a great back builder because you can't just make the statement it's a good back builder. What's the comparison with? What's the baseline? The baseline is other back movements. And then in that comparison, it isn't a good back builder because once again, on a set per set basis, nearly each and every single row would outshine and outperform deadlifts. And this is where I'm coming from. I'm not saying that deadlifts are fucking shitty. I would love them to be amazing for back building. Because I fucking always loved, when I was powerlifting, my most favorite exercise was deadlifts. Because I was strong in them and because it had something kind of that animal touch to it. You just go in there and you rip the fucking shit out of that bar. And I would love, like my personal bro inside of me, I'm just like, yes, please be a good back builder as well. Because then I could pull back on the rows to develop my back and then do more deadlifts if they were equal, but they are not. They are not, right? And at some point you have to make the decision because you only have so much energy resources. And thus you then need to make that needs analysis. Do I want to build my back? What exercise are the best bang for your buck, right? And probably deadlifts are very, very far down in the hierarchy of that.
Yeah, I think it is one of those. It took me a long time to take deadlifts out of my program. I had them for a long, long time. And I think it's a good thing in some ways, because I think as a beginner, if you're going to pick a few movements to grow yourself, it's great because you don't have to worry about systemic fatigue. But once you become more advanced and you actually get strong, systemic fatigue kicks you in the fucking ass. And then when you're thinking erectors and like lower back and all this, usually within someone who's more advanced and strong in their program, they have to be so careful with their exercise selection so that the lower back isn't used too much. So then when you say you're putting a deadlift in for your like lower back, it's like, well, now you have to make everything surrounding your program allow you to do the deadlift. There's a reason the deadlift is often called like the joker within a hypertrophy program, because it just, where the fuck you put it, it just fucks everything up. Not in a good way normally for someone advanced. And I'm the same as you. Like, I would love it to be great. And that's why I put it back in, because I was like, oh, I can do lots of load. It's fun. And the funny thing is, a lot of people, when they do deadlifts for hypertrophy, they're not even doing them like, there's a way to do a deadlift for hypertrophy, and that's controlled eccentrics, nice and slow, potentially a deficit, like these sort of things. That's a better choice. But a lot of people, they just rip like powerlifting, and it's like, now that's not specific to hypertrophy anymore. That's even worse than you think it is. Yeah. So it's funny.
Hey, and if you can't really tell me where you feel it, if you only feel it, like Mike always put it, in your soul, but not in the muscle groups, are you really then training for hypertrophy, or is it just like your ego that wants to actually do some heavy lifting or so, right? And then you have to ask that question. And that is, once again, coming from an absolute rational and logical perspective. And I think at least that's logical, right? Maybe I'm also biased here, right? Because we as human beings, we always think that we are thinking logically, but most of the time we are not. So in that sense, you then simply have to ask the question, right? I have the deadlift. If I want to then build my legs, all right, maybe there's a better choice. Something like the stiff leg deadlifts, probably, perhaps, because do you really feel the deadlift that much in your legs? Yeah, sometimes if you're really built for that, maybe, right? But you always then, once again, have to ask the question, what can the other exercise maybe do better and maybe not give me as much as, on the other hand, that exercise, right? And in nearly every kind of fashion and way, the conventional deadlift off the floor is outshined by other exercises because they are shining more so in favor of hypertrophy. And once again, if someone is then now in the comment section saying like, what a shitty person I am for actually now judging the deadlift, mate, this is once again not a personal attack against you, against your approach. If you have the feeling that deadlifts worked fantastically for you and your development, props to you. But how do you even want to measure that, right? Maybe it's also here just like a personal bias. Because you love that exercise, maybe you also then went into that even more so with more intention and more intensity than any other exercise, because now you are actually in the zone, in the focus zone, right? And or maybe it's just like you want it to be true because you love that exercise. If you already have such a strong belief about that exercise and a strong feeling of me being not even negative, I'm just like saying, okay, I don't value it highly in regards to hypertrophy, and you take it actually like a personal attack, then it tells more about you than it does about me. It tells that you have an emotional attachment to that exercise. And if you already have that, then it also means that you are putting more emphasis in that exercise. You have higher expectations of what that actual exercise is perhaps even giving you in return. And thus, once again, it falls back to you being emotionally attached to that. And it's like a relationship, right? If someone is saying something shitty about your kids or your wife, maybe there's even some truth to it, but you may not be able to see that because you are so emotionally invested in that. That's also one of the reasons why certain lawyers may not be allowed to represent some family members or so, right? Because they have always a personal bias to that one as well. So when it comes to that, and you're then saying like, yeah, but we have anecdotal evidence. Do we really? I very much doubt so, because every single bodybuilder that then these people are claiming have always also done some back work alongside with that. And most of the time, not only some back work, but even a dedication back day. Because the typical way people are training still nowadays, it's like 80 to 90% of the people are still doing bro splits. So if you have a complete dedicated day only for back, where you are then doing a lot of rows and stuff like that, you can't really say that deadlift was the cause for a huge back or so. And that is then not evidence, because evidence would be if we have a group of people who only deadlifted their entire career and have a tremendous back. And then we have that group who only rowed, right? And then we compare those two and say like, okay, yeah, the deadlift actually had the same outcome, for example, as the rows, or maybe a little bit less inferior, a little bit maybe superior, then we have evidence. But if we don't, if that's not in a singular when it comes to the deadlift, then we can't really speak about evidence, because it was always trained alongside something else. And that means that possibly it's the other thing that caused the back growth and not the deadlift. Right? It's the same when it comes to, I don't know, there are so many things that probably we can think of that are highly correlated that we then don't think about, where it's like, I don't know, a kid or so, he became very, very successful, and he blamed his intelligence on it. But he had actually the parents who had all of the connections, right? But no one is thinking about it. And the kid isn't thinking about it as well. He thinks of himself just very highly and thinks that he just accomplished that one all by himself. But in reality, it was something else that led to it. And maybe it's the same way here. And when the argument comes around of like, okay, we have anecdotal evidence of like people having a big back due to the deadlift, no, we don't. We simply don't. But we have, on the contrarian perspective, evidence for big backs without deadlifts.
Yeah, I think it's just had a little bit there, and yeah, not hopefully we could probably do a whole podcast on this actually, but it frustrates me when people use anecdote, because anecdote is even worse than cherry picking science, because then you're cherry picking your anecdotes. Anecdotes already like the lowest of the low in terms of evidence. And then a lot of the time people don't actually know, like someone might say, Steve does this training, whatever, blah, blah, blah. They can't see my entire training program. They're not talking to me. They haven't interviewed me. They don't know exactly what I'm doing. Just like we don't know what the IFBB pros are doing. A lot of them are very secretive, or a lot of like the best natural bodybuilders, we have no clue what they're doing. A lot of them aren't on social media. So it's just a case of like, people are jumping to conclusions just because they heard it somewhere else by someone maybe who's reputable, and they're just bullshit. They're just making shit up so that sells their narrative. And it's super frustrating. And I think when people just logically look at a deadlift, like, is there, and we know like dynamic contractions are best for hypertrophy. How many dynamic contractions are going on a deadlift for your back? Fuck all. Like, there's an isometric contraction for the erectors and traps pretty much, and that's it. You ain't getting big lats from a deadlift. Like, trust me. And that's a large proportion of your back. So like, I think it's just, it could contribute to an overall back at some stage, but there becomes a point where it's certainly not your main focus for back. And like you said, I think some people do, funnily enough, put it on a back day, which I find interesting, because I think a well-performed deadlift for hypertrophy generally isn't something that you would use for back. And if I was doing deadlifts on my back day, my back would be smaller. Like, I can guarantee that, because I'd be so fucked for my rows, my pull downs. I just would not have a big back. And yeah, it's just, like, I think it's not until you can have a discussion like we're having it here, and maybe someone else who kind of loves deadlifts for hypertrophy could have a back and forth. But when we think about stimulus to fatigue ratio, like the mind muscle connection, the pump, disruption in the muscle group, where are you getting that with a deadlift? You're just not. And then you think about the negative fatigue side, like how just general fatigue, you feeling malaise, like beating up your joints and ligaments and things. Like how many times have you done a deadlift and the next day you're just like, I just feel fucked. Like, I don't know, just everything is feeling not good. And like, I've certainly had that many a time. No hate, again, we don't like, there is no hate against like deadlifts. It's just within the context of a like well-programmed hypertrophy like program for a lot of people that are relatively well advanced, it just logically doesn't make huge amounts of sense, especially to build the biggest back, which is what you're kind of, you weren't even necessarily arguing that. You were just saying the biggest contributors to your back was actually rows and pulls with amazing technique. And I find that really hard to argue against.
Yeah, and we couldn't always then, because I hate that. I really hate that when someone is bringing up that kind of example of, okay, when someone is putting a gun to your head, would you be able to do one more repetition? Yeah, of course. Shit. Yeah, absolutely. But who trains that way? Like, all the time. I don't want to train every single time as if the life of my kids are at stake. I don't want to train like that for the next 30 years. I want to enjoy training and not be afraid of being killed in the next second only because I'm not achieving that single rep, right? And will that one single rep really make that much of a difference after all? No. But that's a different story in and of itself. What I mean by that is, if we were to turn it around and use that example in the form of the deadlifts and say like, okay, if someone were to come to you and say like, I'm going to kill your entire family. First, I'm going to rape them. Then I'm going to, I don't know, chop off some limbs. And then I'm going to kill them, right? Unless you're getting like maybe 10 more centimeters on your back in the next year. What are you going to do? Are you going to pick deadlifts in your program? Or are you going to do most of the time, or nearly all of the days, only back days with rows? Like all of them. Why? Because rows are probably less systemically fatiguing. That means in return that you can do more pulling movements on a rep per rep basis. That's then more stimulating overall than, you said it yourself, with a dynamic contractions. They are probably way more given in a rowing movement, right? You have different compartments of the back that you then can target with less systemic fatigue once again. So if you really want to build a back, you wouldn't pick a deadlift. Why? Because you know that the next day you would be wrecked. The risk of injury would be higher. The bang for your buck that you're getting on a rep per rep basis is actually very, very low, and it's simply not worth it, right? Just like if we were coming from a logical perspective of the things that we talked about before that, like absolutely rationally, without any kind of emotions, let's try to sit down, all right, bring up these kind of things. If then the other person is still like, well, we will still see you on the stage, right? I will still see that when you shred it, right? Or we will see whether you have the Christmas tree or not. Okay. And then we can bring it up to that example of like, okay, someone is going to kill your entire family. You have 1 year time of increasing the back to the most amount of possible. Would you then only do rows? Or would you actually chime in some deadlifts every once in a while because, deadlifts are cool? I mean, for me, it's very, very clear. If it's not for you, then perhaps you have to ask yourself like whether you have an emotional attachment to a specific exercise. And then we are at a different discussion of why. Why is one exercise so important to you? What does it give you that other exercises can't give you? Like honestly, and that question you always have to ask yourself. I hate to break it to you. You always have to ask yourself this. When you want to actually have a good way of programming, and perhaps, especially these people always talk about, I don't want to leave anything on the table. I'm taking that pre-supplement for perhaps the additional 5%. Yeah, because you are leaving those 5%, not even 5%, but maybe 50% on the table in other aspects.
Hey, Pascal here. I just wanted to take the moment to talk about our membership site. Inside, you'll find a thriving forum, an extensive exercise library, courses, presentations, and research reviews. All I need you to do is hit the link in the description below and sign up. See you there.
It's actually, it's such a horrible conversation to have with someone, to be like, you're doing everything, but so much of it is not optimal that you don't even realize, like, technique, one of the most foundational concepts to even think about. Actually, I even made that Instagram post recently where I was like, so many people are obsessing about their training volume and arguing, and so many people still have shit technique that they have not sorted out for hypertrophy. And then, I don't know, maybe it's the argument of, oh, but look at these guys, they had shit technique and they have massive back. So maybe that isn't shit. Maybe that should be the standard. It's like, oh, okay, so we're coming back to this. So you can't have an argument when someone tries to bring up Anecdote all the time, because it's like, well, where can we go from there? You're always just going to bring it back to like, oh, this person, and then it's just to and fro, throwing stones at each other. So
and that is the realization I had as well, that because there are so many beliefs involved in that one, when someone is trying to defend a specific exercise, then there is a belief in there, right? Because why would you defend an exercise? Like, honestly, it's only an exercise. It's only a means to an end, right? It serves a purpose, and that purpose can also probably be accomplished with something else. So why are you so fixated on something? That means that you have a belief in something. And when we're then speaking or having a discussion about beliefs or something that someone believes in, wow, very, very hard to convince someone about changing their beliefs. We've seen it, and we've seen it in history over and over and over again. Religion, politics, exercise selection, right?
Diets is one that's just so obvious.
It's very hard to convince someone else to then take a step back and look at it from a different perspective, right? And as long as someone isn't willing to do that, it's a lost cause to actually have that discussion. And I've seen it over and over again. And I'm sorry that we are bringing it up now in this podcast, and so many people will probably now still be listening and think like, oh, man, these guys, they don't know what they're talking about. And that is absolutely fine if you think that way, right? And yes, you can put the comments in the comment section below. I'm not going to read them anyway anymore, because I'm kind of sick and tired of that, because the only people that are commenting are either loyal followers, thank you very much to the loyal followers, or the people who have a strong belief about something. They feel personally attacked by it, and they feel the need then to chime in and actually prove you wrong, which is not leading to any kind of fruitful discussions ever. When has ever a Facebook comment, an Instagram comment, or a YouTube comment that is then kind of addressing the contrary perspective of what someone else has been saying with a strong belief and strong opinion ever led to a fruitful discussion? I can't think of any time that ever happened, like, honestly. And that's why it's just like, I know that these comments will come once again, but I think it's very important to talk about it and also stand by our opinion and words. Right? Because I know that there are so many people out there that are still confused about it, that have gone through a phase of like, but I thought that I need to have deadlifts in a proper program, but it simply doesn't work for me. I'm always fucking beat up. Also, my joints, tendons, ligaments, they are just beat up all the time. I feel like crap, and I feel like if I were to drop that exercise, I could do way more. Hey, this is exactly for you, right? This is us telling you it is all right. It is all right. we are falling once again back to what I've just been saying. An exercise is only a means to an end. And you can actually have that exercise in there if that serves a purpose and gives you what you are looking for, or you can change it and substitute it with something else that gives you more in return. And no matter what name it is, right? If that's the exercise that is for you, less systemic fatigue with a high level of stimulus, it's a no-brainer what to pick, whether it is the deadlift or not. And that's where I'm coming from also here. Yeah. I have no personal problem with the deadlifts. If that is the best stimulus to fatigue ratio exercise for you, be my guest, do it. The likelihood that it is extremely low. Extremely low.
I think the only thing I'd add to this is to really make it very clear to people is, I think the great thing about if it fits your macros and then flexible dieting, allow people to look at diets, not for the foods that were in them, but more so at what those foods were providing. And granted, like food composition does come into it, but it doesn't matter if you're having an apple, a banana, an orange, blueberries, like fruit is pretty decent. It has lots of micronutrients. I'm sure someone will likely argue, oh, but blueberries are a superfood, but whatever, like you're looking at these composites, like they're all great. They're all going to help you achieve your overall goal if they fit within the macros that you're trying to achieve at the end of the day. Very similar with exercise selection. You can almost look at them as like the food composition. It's like you pick the foods that are going to lead to the kind of macros, the best stimulus to fatigue ratio for you. And like, you don't have to think about, oh, but apples or like tilapia thins the skin. Fuck, you could have cod. It's not going to be night and day difference. Just like a deadlift hits these muscles, but you could pick a bunch of different exercises that may be even better within you and they could lead to better results. Just like you could pick maybe superior foods that are going to suit you better. As long as it hits the principles of what we need to achieve for the goal, that's all we need to worry about. The body doesn't know what you're picking. It doesn't know you're deadlifting until the next day. But yeah, no, good chat. Hopefully, I think there will be people that probably are not fond of some of the things we've said, but I think a lot of people kind of know the perspective we're coming from. And I don't think I would have been here like 5 years ago. Maybe I would have still thought deadlifts needed to be there. So maybe some people will still feel a bit that way.
Yeah. And I just want to elaborate on what you just said there. Everything, if you're still listening and you are fucking pissed off now, all right? Everything that we said, and I just want to emphasize that one more time, because sometimes it may be lost in just your rage when you're listening to that. You just, I don't know, switch completely off and all you're hearing is just like, shit, fucking deadlift, shit, right? And in the end, that's not what we've been saying. I just want to make it very clear one more time. This is not a personal attack against deadlifts. This is not a personal attack against you, your approach, your perhaps bias, your experience, what you've done in the past. It isn't. All right? Most of the time, I don't even know the people that are then chiming in, right? And as if I'm judging their personality by the exercise selection that they are doing. And also the same goes for something like the training protocol. I don't think less of you only because you're training a specific way. And I'm laughing because I have the feeling that it's so often like this in this industry. Like, you're a proponent of higher volumes? Fuck you. You are such a bad person. Third World War because of you. Oh, fucking hell. This is like vegans and not like these extreme vegans and those who are not vegans, right? Those two coming together, like someone who's a carnivore and a vegan, like totally convinced about what they are doing is absolutely the right thing and everything else is morally unacceptable. And this is the way I feel sometimes as well. Hey, guys, let's calm all down. This is just fucking training, right? We are still having the same goal. Everyone, right, who is in here, who's probably also listening to this. We are all having the same goal. Getting as big and jacked as fucking possible. How we get there may differentiate in the way we approach things, in our methodologies, right? But does it make you a worse person. If I were to then meet someone else in real life and I knew that they are, I don't know, always training to failure, would I now be like, oh, you fucking idiot, I don't want to hang around with you. I know that you're training to failure all the time. No, absolutely not. I would still approach them and be like, hey, how's it going? Should we train together? All right, so everything we just said here is no personal attack against you. I'm not judging your personality, your decisions in life, nothing. And we should all calm down. And I know my voice is very intense, but this is just the way I'm talking. But we should all calm down, because in the end, it is just like training, and we are all heading into the right, the same direction, right? Some people will come by train, some people will come by car, some people will just walk, some people will take the bicycle, right? But we are all going to the same destination, and we should respect and appreciate every single one who's actually getting to their, hopefully, best outcome.
Yeah, I think what you said there is very much how I feel about it. I hope that people who watch the podcast and listen to us regularly know that's always the place we're coming from. It's from a good place. And our frustrations are at when people aren't coming from that good place, and they're coming from a personal, like, and they attach their personality to a lift or a training approach, like you said. And it's like, no. We try and be rational. Like we say rational all the time. We talk about science and training principles, because that's what we're looking at. We're not looking at kind of like, it's like seeing them through the matrix. Like we can actually see, we're looking at the things behind, the things that actually matter. We're not getting kind of, into a personal battle. And then that's where things like Anecdote really become unhelpful to discussion sometimes. And they can be beneficial at times as well, because we've also said science often lacks experience, like the type of population that's trained with, or whatever it might be. So you have to use Anecdote at times. It's just using it all together. And like you said, we're all here together trying to get jacked. So let's kind of shake hands and be like, right, cool, you have that perspective, that's all right, this is where I'm coming from. And hopefully you can have discussions that are productive, and people learn more, we get closer to that truth. So I don't know if how much time have we got, or we've got questions we can get to some, can we?
We got to now. talking all about the deadlift.
Now people are going to comment and be like, right. What the fuck, guys?
Yeah, sorry. I always had that dream of perhaps bringing the camps of the industry more together. And I still haven't lost my hope, because I think it's
challenging.
Yeah, I think that once we are looking over the tribal epistemology, we can actually be able to come closer together. Because once we are putting down the weapons of belief and biases, then we are actually able to appreciate what the other people are doing, right? I don't know if we ever get there, because just human psychology, human behavior overall. But I also think that human beings are amazing, and something like this, it's the same as exercise. I don't take extremely serious. I mean, yes, my passion is important to me, but I can also have a laugh about all these kind of things, right? Same goes for just like, I don't know, when I go to the gym, I want to enjoy the time there. I don't want to put on the hoodie and just like my headphones and be like, don't talk to me, I'm just like in war mode. Come on, this should be enjoyable for the rest of your life, and you hopefully have started not because you feel like you're now going to worry every single time you're going into the gym, but because you're going to, I don't know, Disney World, having a good time, right? And that's why I have still high hopes that perhaps these words and the things that we are saying, that even if it just reaches one or two people to sit down and really think about it, okay, they're saying like they are often emphasizing that it's not actually a personal attack. And maybe there's something to it, because they don't address me personally. And if I bring up these kind of things, I have no one in mind. No one. Right? And thus I have still high hopes of hopefully contributing, of bringing that industry a little bit together and perhaps making it a better place. Or making it a worse place. I don't know. Could be, right? Like the devil having good intentions and then just like destroying the entire place or entire world.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's what we've tried to do several times with the podcast, bringing people together. But as the host of the podcast and the people I kind of interact with them, I'm very often very happy about kind of the fact that we can get on certain people to have discussions, but it's not always easy. Some people aren't comfortable having those discussions, not knowing exactly why. It can be challenging to people to have their thoughts and processes quite very heavily questioned. Some people just, for me personally, I ain't good at debating. I don't like debating. And so maybe a podcast format for me I'd find it quite challenging and difficult if someone I knew I was debating was, I don't know, a certain way and maybe manipulative. I don't know. People can feel funny emotions with these sort of things, and they can feel that way. So it's very interesting, but it's great. An example I would bring up is like Eric Helms and Mike Israetel. They don't see eye to eye on the very details of things, but it's really cool that they're willing to kind of talk them out, and they respect one another for having the different beliefs. And I think that's a good example of how to be. And then, I don't know, there's probably numerous examples out there of how not to be. And don't go for those examples.
Yeah, we are ripping our heads off while other people are doing Bosu squats and preaching that to the vast majority of people out there. I mean, come on. Why are we fighting each other? Let's go out there and fight the Bosu personal trainers out there. So, yeah.
Awesome. Guys, thank you so much for listening. We should probably have actually done a podcast, on mini cutting.
I thought about it at first, but yeah, don't know.
Because
I was feeling deadlifty here today.
What's actually already happened, Pascal?
We released the Mini Cut Movement, which is a group coaching program for around 70 days. So you will be granted access for 70 days for our Mini Cut course, kind of. It's not really a course, but the Mini Cut Movement, you get access to then a course material that is then being released on a weekly basis. We will stand by your side for 70 days straight. You then get an informational and educational content as a support to go through a mini cut together with us. You get an automated program and an automated diet as well that is then leading you through the mini cut as successfully as possible, so that by the end of the mini cut you hopefully set yourself up for a very successful gaining phase, and then you've done a mini cut together with us.
Yeah, it was for the kind of OGs. I think it was like 2000, I can't remember, 2016 maybe. I released the mini cut movement, and I had many successful rounds of that. Kind of fell out of love with it, and I focused more on the one-on-one. But it's become apparent that group coaching kind of aspect is something that we want to try bringing up again. And mini cuts are a great way to do this, because you get the kind of group morale, the support, the adherence, and we're going to be there to answer questions and keep you on track. And mini cuts are aggressive and they're tough. So to have that support and accountability and your nutrition and training taken care of, so you can just execute, it should work really well for people. So we're very excited because we've been investing a lot of time lately into that. So
absolutely. It's going to be a great thing. And if you've always been, I'm sorry, RP and JPS. So if you've always wanted to check out or have checked out the templates by RP and JPS, which are great, by the way, and you wanted to take it a step further in regards to something like a mini cut, but you were always uncertain about, how should I be able to do that? What should I do in regards to when to make adjustments? How should I set up the training? This is exactly for you. And also, by the way, if you don't have the funds or just the willingness to do something like one-on-one coaching together with us, this is for you as well, because it comes at a significantly lower price than normal weekly one-on-one coaching, and it still guides you through the entirety of a mini cut.
Yep. Awesome. I think people will really enjoy it. I'm excited to see people sign up and go through it. And like you said, it's not just kind of, we just let you go. There's education and there's support throughout it. And we can make sure that your nutrition training is customized and individualized to you for the entirety of the process. And I think leaving not only kind of significantly leaner, 6 to 12 pounds easily could come off over the course, also better educated. And you should also see all the principles within the program, which a lot of people liked the first time. They just kind of were like, oh, so this is what a program should look like. So if you've always kind of not known if your programming is spot on, I think it'll also be a bit of an education for that. So I'm excited to get people shredded or
absolutely
more shredded, or just leaner, losing fat. Cheers,
guys. Thank you very much for listening as always. And yeah, I'm excited for the comments in the comment section below. So see you next time.
So I'm Steve Hall, founder of Revive Stronger and a coach of Revive Stronger.
My name is Pascal Flor. I'm the co-owner of Revive Stronger and also a coach, of course.
Revive Stronger has probably been going solidly for 3 years, roughly about 3 years.
Revive Stronger, to me, it is becoming kind of my child, my foster child. It's the gathering and getting together of like-minded people.
We've been expanding the coaching team, which is helping us help more people, but each coach can only help a certain number of people.
Right now, it's all over the place. We have YouTube, we have Facebook, we have Instagram, but there isn't that community aspect behind that.
And so the next step for us is developing a membership site.
So basically, we want to create a family and a community that is then benefiting from another.
A really cool community for people within our little niche is going to be a website.
They will get early access to our podcast.
You can access us, ask us questions.
The community aspect, we have a forum there. You can ask questions, but also you can log your journey.
There's also going to be courses on there.
Courses, presentations on different topics. Discount of past seminar footage. We will log our journey as well. We'll start vlogging.
We're going to have documentaries.
Our entire athletic journey. Furthermore, they get access to an exercise video library.
The exercises that we love for hypertrophy and maximizing hypertrophy, we're going to go through those in depth, telling you how to execute them.
We kept them concise and also mobile friendly so that you can watch them in between your sets.
I'm super excited to grow this community. The amount of value that we're going to be delivering is huge, and I'd love you to be part of it.
You will get so much out of that.
I'll see you inside.